Thanks for joining me. I'm Aaron Rutten, and in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the new brushes I created for Corel Painter in November of 2018. The four brushes are Water Knife, Cross Hatching, Fine Bumps, and Particle Canvas. You can download these right now at aaronrutten.com. I'll put a link in the video description. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to use each of these brushes. Let's start with Water Knife. That's found in my Palette Knives category. I have a base color here for my water. I'm going to go ahead and sample that, and I'm just going to make that color a bit lighter. And I'll go ahead and paint some horizontal strokes. I'm going to start using lighter pressure and build up to heavier pressure. And you'll see that I can fade this stroke in and out if I go back to light pressure. That works really well for getting reflections and ripples in the water. And if you're using a Wacom art pen, you can also rotate this brush to change the angle. But generally speaking, it's going to work better if you just keep it flat like this if you're painting water. This is also a glazing brush, so I can change the merge mode to screen. And now I don't even need to change my color if I want to build up my color lighter and lighter. I just keep painting in the same area over and over again and it'll build up lighter. So I could very easily go through here like this and just paint some rippled water effects. Can leave some little gaps in the water, just doing little Z shapes, back and forth zigzags. And I can go over it again with lighter pressure, just to bring in some highlights in some of those areas. Maybe make a smaller brush, and go over it again in a few areas just to add a few little ripples here and there. This is a fantastic brush for painting water. If you wanted to do ocean waves, you can also do these rolling shapes like this to create ripples in the water that are a bit more lumpy. Just as well, I can change the merge mode to multiply, and then I'll build up my color darker and darker on itself. So I can put in some little shadows in the ripples here. The second brush that we'll look at is called Cross Hatching. This is found in my inking category. I'm going to go ahead and choose black. I'm going to start out using lighter pressure, and I'll get this thinner, more transparent cross hatching that's a bit smaller. If I increase my pressure, then it starts to get more opaque and the cross hatching gets larger. So I can quickly and easily go in here and put in a nice cross-hatching background. Or if I wanted to, I could make a selection and I could cross-hatch into that. If you want a little bit more control over the cross-hatching, you can dive into your advanced brush controls. And if we look under angle and then expression, if we change the expression from random to none, now we'll just get regular hatching. And if you want vertical hatching, you can change the angle to 90 degrees. Or 45 if you want it to be diagonal. You could also set the expression to tilt if your pen supports pen tilt, and you could tilt it to get different angles like so. Or if you're using the Wacom art pen, you could set it to rotation. We'll go ahead and set it back to random, and then I'll get that nice cross hatching, which is now at a diagonal because I have my angle set to 45. The third brush that we'll look at is called Fine Bumps. This is an impasto brush, and it's found in my texture category. Now this brush is going to require that you already have something on your canvas, be it artwork or a photograph, but something that you want to add a bumpy texture to. I have this green gradient here, and if I paint with fine bumps, you can see it adds a nice bumpy texture. Now I could of course add this on a separate layer as well. This texture is being created using an impasto layer, and you can turn that impasto on and off by going to Canvas. And then you can hide impasto. You can also change the lighting on the impasto, and you can clear the impasto. If you painted your bumps on a separate layer, you could just simply delete that layer to get rid of the impasto as well. Now you can change the size of the lumps by going to Feature. I could change this from 8 to 28. Now you can see that those bumps are much larger. And if I want the bumps to be smaller, I can set it much lower to 2. Now I get a finer, sandier texture here. Might be kind of hard to see that, so I'll just zoom in. I'll set this back to 8. You can also control the flow or how many bumps come out at once. If I set the flow much lower to 1, you can see that not very many bumps come out. If I set it much higher, let's say to 90, then a lot of bumps come out and you don't really see individual bumps, it just creates kind of a texture. If we set it to something in the middle, like 50, then we get a little bit of both. You could also use this brush on a photograph. It works great for adding texture to photos. I've gone ahead and created a blank layer on top of my photograph. I've set it to an overlay composite method. Now if I paint on the photograph, you can see I can easily add texture to the photograph that looks very realistic. And the last brush that we'll look at is Particle Canvas. This is a particle brush, and it's found under Image Hose and Particles, and then it's in the Particles Design category. We'll go ahead and paint a stroke using light pressure to heavy pressure. And you can see within that stroke, there's kind of this dotted canvas pattern. This is where the particles kind of clump together. In other places, they kind of spread out randomly, so it gives you a very random pattern. It's not a consistent repeating pattern. So you could go through here and you could add in a bit of canvas texture to something. And if you want a little bit more control over your texture, you can change your paper grain to something else. I'm going to choose small dots. That's going to help it look a lot more like canvas. So you could add this as paint that's going into your canvas grain, or you could add it as an overlay layer to add a canvas texture on top of everything. Let's go ahead and change to something else. Let's change to pebble board for a paper texture. Now you can see I'm getting that pebble board. And if I want, I can change the paper scale, and I can easily change that to get more or less texture. This is a really nice alternative to using something like a chalk brush to get texture. You can also make your brush much bigger, and you can cover more area at once. But it does slow down a little bit because this is a particle brush. You make your brush smaller, of course, and the particles will be more densely clumped together. You can also look in the grain panel, and you can experiment with adding random grain rotation and position if you want a little bit more randomization out of your strokes. You can add both here, and you can see if I build up this texture on top of itself, then it's not a consistent pattern every time. If I turn those off and I do the same mark, you can see that it just builds up on top of itself, and wherever there's a gap in the texture, there will continue to be a gap. So there you go, that's a demonstration of how to use the 4 new brushes I created for Corel Painter in November of 2018. Download these brushes now at aaronrutten.com. And if you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. I have a lot more digital art videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.